Jordan was considered the Palestinian state. Here's another bit of news from Israel today. Wealthy Arab helps Hamas buy up Jerusalem property. A wealthy Egyptian sheikh who resides in Qatar has given Hamas $21 million to buy up property on the eastern side of Jerusalem. Israeli Security Agency Director Yuval Diskin said at his weekly cabinet meeting this week. Diskin said Hamas's rivals and Mahmoud Abbas's Palestinian Authority are also buying up property in Jerusalem and renewing official activity there. Diskin believes the two parties will eventually work together from their respective power bases in Jerusalem to push Israel out of the eastern side of its capital. Meanwhile, Abbas on Sunday accused Israel of trying to Judaize all of Jerusalem after the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave a green light to building this hotel project, they call it here. It's actually just a bunch of condos, 20 units, where the Shepherd Hotel used to be. In a statement published by the official Palestinian news agency, Wafa, Abbas went on to claim that Israel is trying to destroy the Islamic and Christian character of Jerusalem and turn it into a purely Jewish city. And by the way, if they do, more power to them. Because God gave Jerusalem to the Jews. Face it. So, he went on to say that he falsely suggested that Israel impose heavier taxes and building restrictions on Jerusalem's southern or Arab residents in order to force them to leave. I don't think they ever have. They, as Israel has said, Benjamin Netanyahu has just said, and I read it to you, that Israel allows the Arabs to build anywhere they want to. And the Jews should be accorded the same privilege. Here's another Israel Today article. UN troops help Lebanese to infiltrate Israel. That's right. This week, there was a letter issued of complaint to Israel, issued a letter of complaint to the United Nations claiming that its soldiers under the command of UNIFIL in southern Lebanon actually aided a group of Lebanese citizens in infiltrating northern Israel over the weekend. Israeli ambassador to the UN, Gabriela Shalev, said that UNIFIL troops stationed in the area were perfectly aware that a group of some 12 to 15 Lebanese were moving into northern Israel and did nothing to stop them. She said that according to some witnesses, the infiltrators actually coordinated their movements with UNIFIL personnel on the ground. Shalev said that the incident highlighted a worrying pattern of behavior both on the part of the Lebanese and UN forces mandated to prevent another conflict between Israel and its northern neighbor. Finally, here's the most scariest of all the articles. Researchers at Washington Center for Strategic and International Studies have tried to assess the extent to which civilian targets would be damaged in an Iran-Israel nuclear exchange. It's a nightmare that haunts the modern Middle East. Iran succeeds in its quest for nuclear weapons and goes to war with Israel, causing massive human casualties and destruction on a demonic scale that could turn, or that in turn could trigger a worldwide economic collapse. The initial fireball, accompanying a 100-kiloton nuclear bomb exploding in the heart of Tel Aviv, would instantly kill 8,966 people and injure 3,243 more, says Anthony Kordsman and Abdullah Toukan. But within 3 weeks, the death toll would soar to 800,000 as a plume of radiation spreads across the country. Given its tiny size and 7.2 million population, a single nuclear blast could devastate Israel. It could wipe Israel off the map in a matter of seconds, said Michael Oren, Israel's ambassador to the United States. The Iranians could accomplish in a matter of seconds what they denied Hitler did and kill 6 million Jews, literally. Any missile with a nuclear warhead landing in Tel Aviv, Israel, will affect the West Bank, causing a large number of fatalities and injuries to the Palestinian inhabitants, pollute and contaminate the agricultural land and resources that lie in the Jordan Valley, and over a longer term, fallout radiation would reach the outskirts of Amman, Jordan, which is some 108 kilometers from Tel Aviv. Retaliatory Israeli nuclear strikes with higher yield bombs and accurate rocket delivery systems would be far more destructive. A single 500 kiloton Israeli nuclear bomb dropped on Tehran would kill 56,000 people immediately, and the death toll would soar to over 1.47 or 1.5 million people, with 5 million people injured within a week. A full-fledged Israeli nuclear response, using some but not all of its 200 nuclear weapons, would target most major Iranian cities and major military bases. It would kill 16 to 28 million people within 3 weeks. Metropolitan Tehran, with a population of 15 million, is a topographic basin with a mountain reflector, nearly an ideal nuclear killing ground, according to the study. With thousands of centrifuges spinning away to produce highly enriched uranium, Iran gets closer to owning nuclear weapons with each day that passes. And this article says, I don't see a lot of space between Iran, where Iran is headed, and the potential of where that development might lead. According to Mike Mullen, an admiral, telling the Washington think tank recently, he said, my concern is that the clock continues ticking, and I believe that Iran is very much focused on getting that capability. This is a narrow space we have. And, of course, the United States is trying negotiations, but it isn't working. He said, quote, time is working in Iran's favor, and barring military action, Iran's possession of nuclear weapons is only a matter of time. Israeli intelligence agencies predict Iran could have a nuclear weapon later this year or early next year in 2010. The U.S. intelligence community estimates that it won't happen before 2013. Israel says it could happen in the next few months. That's the news. You can see how things are going. Not too well in the Middle East. And then there's this explosion on the planet Jupiter as it is bombarded by a comet or asteroid and left a scar the size of planet Earth. Wow. Is Jesus coming soon? I think he is. I think we need to prepare for the rapture. I'm waiting to hear that trumpet, that heavenly trumpet. And I urge you to win as many people as you can to the Lord, because all that we win will be taken out with us to safety. While Jacob's trouble proceeds here on the planet, and God's wrath is poured out upon an unbelieving world. So, pray that God will have his way. And by the way, no matter what happens, the Lord is in control. Remember that. This world may be going through the birth pangs with nuclear war and all the other things that might happen. But I can tell you that eventually and shortly, in other words, only 7 years at most, 3.5 at best, shortly, Jesus will be coming and setting up utopia on this planet where men will live in peace for 1,000 wonderful years. I'm J.R. Church. We'll see you again tomorrow with our analysis of the news.